Hello again, this is Chris at the Stogie Palace with a little bit different kind of video. Not so much a cigar review, but a commentary on what's in a name. In this case, the name of a cigar. This particular cigar, the Hammer and Sickle. I guess I should throw out a big old disclaimer here to start. Some panties will be put in a wad over this. I know some people I like to watch and listen to are not going to like what I have to say. Namely, that would be the Cigar Authority, who I watch or listen to their show all the time. As you've seen, I'm a subscriber to their care package, this is from the care package, which I think is a tremendous deal for the cigars you get. And I agree with them almost 100% of the time on everything they say. Really enjoyable show, the whole panel. I also want to make a disclaimer that cigars, you've heard brothers of the leaf, stuff like that, sisters of the leaf, it is sort of a brotherhood. We all need to be looking out for each other. In my case, I want all cigar manufacturers to succeed. Cubans, not so much. I care less if they succeed or fail until they're a free country, which we'll come around to because of this brand. The manufacturer of this cigar, I forgot the name, but I'll mention it again here somewhere, Clin, or they're called, Clin. Nothing against them and nothing against Eric Hansen, who's been on Cigar Authority a lot of times. This is not personal. I just have to say, this has got to be one of the worst named cigars brands there is. Just my opinion. If you're under 45, none of this probably is going to have the same impact if you are over 45. Unless, of course, you lived in Eastern Bloc countries, and you probably will agree with me. This brand is called Hammer and Sickle. The logo, the icon, as they call it, is the Hammer and Sickle. And it's giving me trouble, too. I'm also doing a non-biased review, not biased against the name at all. And I think I'm going to actually like this cigar. It has nothing to do with the cigar. It just has to do with the name, which I don't quite get. And they want to build a lifestyle around it, according to the latest podcast I heard, which is pretty recent. The people on Cigar Authority, like I said, I totally trust their judgment on just about everything. Although the first couple times I watched their video, I see one of the main guys, Mr. Jonathan, who I think is funny and has got a very interesting palate and way more cigar knowledge than me, even though he hasn't been smoking nearly as long. It doesn't matter, though. When he's sitting there on video wearing a black cap with this logo, this icon of the Hammer and Sickle, before I knew about Hammer and Sickle, why is this guy wearing a communist hat? I'm having a tough time with this one because wrapper's coming undone. So, there's a disclaimer. Some of you that have nothing to do with the company or that podcast may not like it either. May think it's too much of a stretch, making too much of nothing. I'm not making anything out of anything. Just my opinion. I just don't like the name. I don't like what it stands for. To me, the Hammer and Sickle is no different than the swastika. If you look at the history, the swastika, and you can read about this online all you want, doesn't really mean anything. It actually, I think it was used in India before the Nazis took it over. And of course we know the history of that and what kind of people use it these days, and it's not for good purposes. But it doesn't really symbolize anything. It doesn't mean anything. The Hammer and Sickle does mean something. The company itself, Hammer and Sickle, acknowledges this, that there is an actual meaning behind it. The communists believed it too. Lenin, he believed that there was a meaning behind the hammer and the sickle. So, first, to give the company the benefit of the doubt, I want to read some of the stuff off of their website. This is right off hscigars.com. The brand, first known, the brand wrote this, they're talking about the brand. The first known use of the Hammer and Sickle mark was in the early 1800s. Pause. I'm going to pause there. I can't find any proof of that. A website from Westminster College, quote, The emblem of the hammer and sickle, however, is undoubtedly the most exciting and recognizable symbol of the communist revolution in Russia and the world. The two objects already had a history in provincial heraldry and first began to appear on Bolshevik propaganda around 1917. And then Wikipedia said the Irish first used it in 1914, and then in 1917 Vladimir Lenin held a competition for a new emblem, and this was the result. End quote. Back to Hammer and Sickle website. The mark was employed by many Russians as a symbol explaining the combination of industry and agriculture. The hammer mark was used to represent the north of the country, where the majority of Russian industry resided at the time. In contrast, the sickle represented the south country of the country, where Russian agricultural is still based today. Together, this is from Hammer and Sickle's website, together the mark represents the unity of a nation encompassing a cold northern climate and a warm southern climate. Pause. On the Cigar Authority, Eric Hansen of Hammer and Sickle had repeatedly said it's the star, not the hammer and sickle, that symbolizes communism. Now, in the old Soviet Union's flag, they had the hammer and sickle with a star above it. Westminster College says, the working class proletariat is represented by the hammer and the rural peasant by the sickle. The objects are united under a 5-point star signifying a symmetrical unity between the agrarian and industrial laborers. So, to take that last sentence from Hammer and Sickle's website, it isn't the hammer and sickle that show unity. It's the star above the hammer and sickle that the website claims, or Mr. Hansen anyway claims, that the star represents communism. That's not completely true. You know, your sources may vary. You may find something completely different. Okay, back to the Hammer and Sickle website. The Hammer and Sickle icon, small I. We chose the Hammer and Sickle icon to represent our brand, as a story uniquely matches the history of the icon itself. Now, when they're saying the icon, they're not saying this. The cigar I'm smoking used to be called the icon. It's now called the trademark because of trademark issues. It's all kind of weird loop there, but when they're talking about the icon on their website, they're talking about the logo, whatever else you want to call it, this icon of the hammer and sickle. Our vodka distilleries, because they make vodka too, resides in the north of Russia, while the winter wheat we use as a foundation of hammer and sickle is grown exclusively in the south. This combination of distilling know-how and agricultural excellence is what makes hammer and sickle vodka the perfect blend for any occasion. Here at Clint, that's the company that makes this, we believe the hammer and sickle icon represents cigar brands as well. While we do not produce cigars in Russia, cigar making is also a marriage between agricultural and industrial know-how. I think you will agree, from the farmer through the roller, hammer and sickle cigars are a true representation of the excellence of cigars. Now, following is from Wikipedia, and you can take that with as much grains of salt as you want, but this is really from other sources that I looked into. So it's not just Wikipedia or somebody on Wikipedia in their garage or basement, just making stuff up. What it says about the hammer and sickle, it's a communist symbol that was conceived during the Russian Revolution. At the time of the creation, the hammer stood for industrial laborers and the sickle for the peasantry. Combined, they stood for the Worker-Peasant Alliance, for socialism and against reactionary movements and foreign intervention. At the time of creation, the hammer and sickle stood for Worker and Peasant Alliance, with the hammer. I'm kind of repeating what I said earlier. A traditional symbol of the industrial proletariat who dominated the proletariat of Russia, and the sickle, a traditional symbol for the peasantry, while the meaning has since broadened to a globally recognizable symbol for Marxism, Marxist parties, and socialist states. So 2 or 3 times now I've said that the hammer and the sickle, what it's supposed to represent, right? Now, that's sort of where the company is when they describe why they're using it. But the reality of it is, it stands for communism worldwide. And it also says 3 out of the 4 currently ruling communist parties use a hammer and sickle as a party symbol. The Communist Party of China, Vietnam, and the Lao People's Revolutionary Party. Now, those are the ruling communist parties. There are lots of countries where the Communist Party is not the ruling party, but they still exist. Many communist parties around the world still use the hammer and sickle. That would include the communist parties of Greece, Chile, Egypt, Spain, Denmark, Norway, Romania, Lebanon, Sweden, Mexico, Italy, and Peru, where it's called the Shining Path, whatever that means. In some countries, the hammer and sickle is outlawed. In a lot more countries, it was outlawed and then it was overturned. But currently, the legal status in several countries in the former Eastern Bloc, there are laws that define the hammer and sickle as a symbol of totalitarian and criminal ideology, and the public display of the hammer and sickle and other communist symbols, such as the red star, is considered a criminal offense. Georgia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, and Ukraine have banned the symbol along with other communist symbols. In Indonesia, the public display of communist symbols like the hammer and sickle is prohibited by decree. I've heard the Cigar Authority quite a few times where Mr. Hansen was on there, and I'm not saying that these people are communists by any stretch. I'm not saying matter of fact, I've heard them more than once say that we are completely the opposite of it, and I believe them. That's not the point. It's just, don't really quite understand the point of the name. It doesn't really hold up to what they're explaining what it means. It means communism. A whole lot of people died because of communists. There's the estimate is 85 to 100 million people have been killed in the name of communism. I'm not exaggerating or trying to be sensational when I say, to me, the hammer and sickle is no different than the swastika. I would not buy a swastika labeled cigar. I would not buy a hammer and sickle labeled cigar. I had a feeling sooner or later with this care package from Cigar Authority that this would come in the mail because they're big on this company and it's won awards and it's a good cigar. I'm not debating that at all. That's not the point. It's just the name that I got a problem with. Like I said earlier, if you're 45 or older, and you experienced firsthand the Cold War, especially if you were not, well, I was say, not sheltered like us in the United States, but I mean, you were actually in it in Eastern Europe, stuff like that. I don't think you have any love loss for this symbol at all. Somebody on the Cigar Authority more than once, and other people have brought up, well, you buy cigars from Cuba, there is a communist country right there. Well, no, I don't. I bought one in my life. I was in Canada on vacation, and I wasn't willing to spend very much. It was very good, I will say, but I am not going to be, if somebody wants to give me some, whatever, I'm not going to be going on my way to give a penny to that regime. Drawing this is a little tough, as you probably are witnessing here. But the whole Cold War, and I understand the rationales, like that's not what it means. It means before the communists took over. It's the workers, the peasants, and on like that. So it's pre-communist, although this icon really just stands for communism. So I assume it means it's also post-communist, like these days in Russia. The only problem with that is world events, the way things are going over there in Russia, where our good buddy Putin, and I don't want to get into politics too much here, is sure trying to revive that whole brand. Not by saying communism or using this, but reclaiming those states, including now the Baltic states, that were once part of the Soviet Union. Georgia, Ukraine, not good stuff going on over there. Not necessarily our buddy. And when I say our, I mean the United States. I know people around the world watch these videos, but not doing good things. So, anyway, just something I wanted to put out there. Didn't want to make it part of the main cigar video. I'm not going to let it taint my review of the cigar. Appearance, yeah, I'm not going to say that this icon is the greatest thing for bands. the name, they want to get the lifestyle thing going, which I guess means apparel, jewelry, and I hear they got boxes that are really cool for their cigars. But you could have picked a better logo, a better icon, a better representation. This is just like any other cigar made in Central America, or this one, Dominican Republic, made by Davidoff, from what I understand, in their factory. Good ingredients, good cigar. Some people say great cigar. I just don't understand let's put it this way. The explanation I've heard so far, and I've listened to quite a few of them on Cigar Authority, ain't get passing the old sniff test for me. I'm sure it is for other people, especially younger people that just weren't around for this and think that the whole Cold War was just one big joke. It wasn't. Granted, I'm a U.S. government employee since '85, and the Cold War was still raging. Does that color my opinion about things? No, because I had pretty much the same opinion when I was younger, when I was in high school, when I was in college, when I was learning about the world and our friends, our allies, our enemies, stuff like that. And to me, this symbol is just a little offensive. First time I saw it outside of textbooks and stuff is when I was on a vacation down in Mexico, and Castro was going to be visiting, and people were putting these all over the place on walls and stuff. Didn't like it then, don't like it now, never will. And like I said, to me, it's no different than the swastika. But please, as I said in my disclaimer, this is not a reflection on the company, on the owners, on the manufacturers of the cigars, on the retailers, anybody else, or people that like these. So anyway, that's enough of a soapbox, I would say. One continuous video soapbox that I don't do very often. But thanks for watching. Hope I didn't lose a whole handful of subscribers over this, but if something's on my mind, I'm going to say it. Whether it's politically correct or not. Whether half of the people or more won't like it, I'll do it anyway. Just something that's got to be said. And I don't see anybody else really saying it. I haven't come across it yet. So thanks for watching. This is Chris, Stogie Palace. Enjoying this Hammer and Sickle trademark. It used to be called the Icon, Maduro. Thanks for watching. See you later.